Good day. I am the actor Java Edge, and I play the character of Christopher Flynn on this podcast, Urbane Legends. The Gorbles Vampire has been split into two parts, as it ran quite long. This is the first part. I will be back again at the end of this podcast to wish you adieu.
Welcome to Urbane Legends, the podcast about urban legends and how to act in a courteous and refined manner, but much less about that. Here's your hosts, Neil and Chris.
Hello and welcome to Urbane Legends, the podcast about urban legends, but almost entirely about etiquette. I am direct blood descendant of the Sumerian Anunnaki, Chris Flynn, and with me once again is the man of arms for Uri Gellar's new outlaw motorcycle gang, the Bent Forks, coming straight out of Red Hill. It is
Neil Herbert.
Hi Neil, how's your week been?
Mentally taxing, just,
That dealing with Uri Gellar?
focusing on that psychic energy on cutlery to make it bend.
So how did you get involved in that? I know you and Uri go back a while, but I didn't know that he was into motorbikes and outlawing.
Yeah, no, he's I think he's there's a lot of outlaw gangs crawling around Brighton.
Sorry,
it's very much like Sons of Anarchy in the UK.
Yeah,
all that Irish one that they did. As I recall.
Or the Mayans.
Yeah. But yeah, no, he's a massive fan. He's
Sons of Anarchy.
His cut like 30 years ago, I believe they call it. Yeah, he's a man of mayhem. We know what that means, but we won't get into it.
Oh yeah.
Don't want any legal trouble.
Oh, that's
and I'm not a grass, obviously.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying out. I want to be an affiliate member for the gang. So. He's just got me, going around buying him Space Raiders and stuff, just like low-level tasks at the moment.
See, I heard you were the man at arms for them, but you're just a prospect. Is that
a prospect at the moment? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm looking to. He thinks potentially I've got what it takes to become,
man at arms. Yeah.
Man at arms, a right-hand guy. But
yeah.
Like everyone, obviously they see me for what I can be, but you've got to work your way up. That's the beauty of it. It's a meritocracy.
Yeah, everyone's got to take your licks.
Yeah, you work your way up as a prospect first. No, it doesn't matter who you are. You don't,
Yeah. Are you?
Start at the bottom.
Are you still cruising around on that 125?
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of upgrading to a Vespa
because you've only got your license up to 125.
Well, exactly. Yeah, and I don't want to break the law. You can't go legal trouble.
God, again, would be furious if you did that.
You need to have no time for that.
No,
absolutely. Just cool. Get a lot of heat down on the gang. Don't need that with the kind of activities that we're into. Obviously, I can't talk about that side of the club.
Smuggling moody fags from.
Can't talk about it. No. You're not in the gang, Chris.
I'm not in the gang. No. I once tried to get into a motorcycle gang, but because of my problems with authority,
it was electric bicycle, wasn't it? Really?
Well, it was a tricycle.
One of those ones with a dynamo where you sort of pedal it and
and it makes the light go on.
Easier on the uphill. wasn't really in the spirit of the thing.
Yeah, but I had really massive palions on the side, which actually counteracted the power of the fairly weak 16-volt battery engine. So, at the end of the day, I gained nothing. But it did it. I don't think it did. No. Everyone assumed that I was working for Deliveroo or something, despite the fact that I had a string vest on and obviously a leather waistcoat with a big picture of Mickey Mouse on the back because I bought it from Euro Disney. For some reason I couldn't get in the game.
The brief dalliance with motorcycle culture.
Yeah, it was just after the Mighty Ducks or something. They then went into motorcycle culture.
There's no pie that the mouse house doesn't have a finger in.
Oh well, I wish you luck. Will you keep us updated? Like, what you can.
I'll let you know. I'll let you know what I can. And undoubtedly, in future podcasts, we'll definitely come back to this.
Good. And are the Bent Forks, Uri's gang's main rival still the gardener Monty Don's gang, the Pitchforks?
No, it's Randy Skeptics. Chatting shit about how his psychic powers aren't.
Monty Don and the Randy Skeptics. Yeah. Because they've been around.
James Randy. You heard of this guy?
James Randy, no.
He's chatting shit. He tries to what he calls debunk all of these like false kind of like a psychic
allegedly false.
Yeah. Well, we all know Uri Gellar. We've seen the spoon bending trick.
I know.
Can you explain that, James Randy?
Exactly. Do you think Michael Jackson's going to hang around with someone who's lying? Wouldn't have thought so. Good. All right. Well, yeah. Keep us up to date. I've been on a health kick, Neil. And I've gone on one of these Hollywood fad diets.
Oh, nice.
It's called called the Jack Klugman diet. Do you remember
that's Jack Klugman. That was the guy. He was on one of those detective shows.
Quincy.
Coroner. Quincy, that's the one.
Yeah. So what I do is for breakfast, I have 8 eggs. No, fortunately, no whiskey. I have 8 eggs, a cigar, and 2 litres of ginger beer. And then...
Lovely lady. He was a bit of a ladies' man, wasn't he, Quincy?
Yeah, he was. Unfortunately, well, with his physique, based on this diet, the ladies couldn't get enough, really.
Yeah.
Come here, lady. Come here, doll. And then I have the same for lunch. And then I have the same for dinner, but with a handful of laxatives. And I've lost 2 pounds. So it's going all right.
Protein as well. So
Lots of protein, yeah. I can feel the power surging through me.
I think some vitamins and minerals would be good as well, but,
no,
results speak for themselves.
No, the hollow minerals, that's what they calls them. Don't have no hollow minerals. Have a cigar. Yeah, so that's been going well. So shall we get on to some etiquette, Neil? I know that you're a man of the world, and by that I mean you've visited places, not experienced things.
No, I don't like to experience things. I like to go to foreign countries and then lock myself in the hotel room and
watch horses on your laptop.
Yeah. just to show that, I can go there, but, there's nothing to learn or do for me.
Right, so I've got a couple of tips here for in-flight etiquette. And we all know that people are cunts on planes. So, hopefully this will...
If you're going to put a sick bag on the front of your seat, they're asking you to use it, Chris. That's what I say.
Right.
If you don't want vomit, then don't give me a sick bag.
So here's one which no one follows. Be kind before you recline. Flights are getting diverted because of rude reclining. Stay upright if the person behind you is tall, i.e. you or me, or pregnant, i.e. me. Bonus points if you ask before you recline. 9 out of 10 times they'll say yes. 1 out of 10 times you may suffer the wrath of a drink thrown in your face. I've never seen that happen on a flight.
I think that would be very rude if somebody asked you if they could recline you
throw your drink in their face.
I've wanted to do that when somebody, the instant the flight
starts banging your legs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. Nowadays, I pretty much cough up the extra for the extra legroom seat, if at all possible, because I'm 6'4", so...
Yeah, quite often they try and... I don't know if you ever get this, but some don't fly that often, but quite often they try and find you an aisle seat as well, don't they? Or what's the one where you get the extra...
No, they don't.
A couple of times would have said, because I'm always a bit suspicious, and they're like, do you want extra leg room? And I'm like, what's that going to cost? I'm like, no.
I've never had that. I've always had to pay. Maybe it's because you're more adorable than I am.
Could be.
I look like I'm ready for war at all times. So this one made me laugh because I don't know who's written these. So bathroom wars. Don't climb over your row mates to get out of the aisle. Who does that? Let them know you need...
This is the thing. I'm sure people do.
I'm sure
all of this has happened.
I don't know.
People who do that are not going to be reading about etiquette, so it's not really.
You kind of hear horror stories about internal flights in the USA, so maybe it's kind of aimed at that. We kind of, I don't know, in Europe we tend not to do these, like just clamber over people and stuff, but I don't know, maybe I've just been lucky in the
European ones. I think the worst for me is just like a bunch of drunk people who've just been hitting it all in the airport and then they decide to have a sing-song or something.
Yeah, again, it's only happened, I can't remember that happening to me particularly.
No, not too often, but yeah, as you say,
and I'm fairly well travelled, like yourself. So don't clamber over them. Let them know you need to use the restroom and suggest your whole row uses the lavatory to save stand-up, sit-down time dance.
That's fantastic. Obviously you ask, excuse me, I need to...
Yeah, sorry, I need to use the bathroom. Yeah, you don't go, hey guys, how about we all go up and then we don't have to do this again so soon.
Let's make it a game.
I'll time how quickly you can go to the bathroom, and then the next person tries to beat that time.
Come on, go. That's ridiculous. I mean, unless you've all sort of been...
Unless you're mates or something. Yeah. But even then...
You've all been out and you've all sort of... why don't we do... No, that's strangers as well. But I think the big thing for...
I assume that people would go... I would assume that the three strangers in the aisle were going up for a really uncomfortable threesome if I saw that happening. Like, this flight's boring. Let's all go up to the toilet together. Wink.
With flights, especially if they're reasonably shortish ones, then, people just don't be interacting, really. Nobody wants it. No. If it's like a 20-hour flight or something to Australia or something like that, fair enough, you might, do you fancy it? You just ask and say, no offence, but, you might...
Fancy a quick rummage in the toilets.
I'm going to go and get a blanket from the stewardess now. But, if you're not interested, please say so, but
I'm going to... But silence is complicity. Yeah. Even though you're asleep.
No. But the nearest to that kind of thing I can think of actually was, and it's a sort of different situation where I did threaten to clamber over somebody. So I was getting a train up to Birmingham, I think it was.
Right.
And I'd had a reserved ticket and sort of went up, and this carriage was all full. Mm-hmm. And there's a lady sitting there with a daughter on the outside of these seats.
Yeah.
And she's taking up my reserved seat. She says, this is reserved for me and my daughter. And I think she must have extra people or something like that. So, okay, but I've got a reserved ticket. She's going, well, it's not showing on the signs. Well, the sign's broken, but look, you can see on my ticket. Oh, well, so at first I was just a bit sort of, okay. So I walk up down the carriage. But
got all English about it.
I came back and said, sorry, it's just you and your daughter sitting here, and there's 4 seats, yeah? Well, yes, because, she might need to go to the toilet. I said, well, that's fine, then I'll sit in there. Yeah. So, well... Oh, no. And I said, well, look, I'll tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to put my bag up here. I can climb over you into that seat there, or you can move and you can come out. Either way, I'm going to be sitting there, so you figure out how you want that to happen.
And I'll be honest with you, I'll kill your daughter if I climb across.
Yeah. That's a climb over, but yeah, just really rude. Basically, she decided, because her and her kid were there, that they hadn't booked a ticket, but that they deserved the whole table to themselves.
Oh, right, they had the whole table.
And eventually she wandered off and went to another carriage. But
what a prick!
It's like,
well, it's that kind of
reserved seat, and I was like, if it had been half empty, and it's like, well, do you mind?
I'll just go somewhere else.
Yeah, of course, yeah, I'll go and sit somewhere else. It's not a problem. But it was completely full. I don't know where she was. Anyway, I don't care, frankly. But there's that point when someone's just been outright rude, and at first you think, oh, I must have misread something here, and then I sort of like...
because you don't believe that people are that entitled, so you think that you must have made a mistake.
No, exactly. But then I was like, oh, no, okay, I see what the situation is. So it's like, well, okay. It's like whenever, people say, oh, well, somebody's put a bag down on the seat next to them, and it's like the bus is full or a coach is full. And what do? I'll tell you what I do. Pick the bag up and say, well, I'll say to them, I'm going to be sitting there, so you want to pick the bag up and shove it on your lap, or do you
want to deal with it
on the lap if they pretend to ignore me? Yeah, no, because if someone's going to be that outright rude, do you know what I mean? Yeah, fine, I'll be rude back. I don't care. I'm not your friend. I don't give a shit what you think of me. Because you're being rude there. It's like, a full coach, and you've decided that you need these 2 seats. Of course, we'd all love to have.
Yeah, I don't want to sit next to strangers particularly, but at the end of the day, we're all in society together, and we're trying to rub along. And I don't see that my slight mild uncomfort sitting next to someone should mean that someone should stand up for 2 hours on a moving vehicle dangerously.
If you're in a coach or something, you can't. It's not like you can. If it's a bus, whatever. But you can't exactly stand in the aisle on a coach, can you? So it's like, well, no, there are no other seats. Your bag cannot have a seat. Sorry. I know you don't want to sit next to anyone, but maybe don't book a coach next time. There you go.
Yeah, walk.
By a car. You'll find that's more convenient. Anyway.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it?
That's only less and more of a rant about my...
Yes, well, I certainly touched a nerve there. So I'm glad that people got to see the other side of the affable teddy bear that is Neil Herbert when he's not on air. Which is a ranting madman.
That whole thing where somebody's, deciding to be really rude, just,
and that takes courage then, because you get kind of more used to it as you get older, but I don't like confrontation, and so I think that people they bargain on the fact that people, especially British people, don't like confrontation and don't like making a scene and that kind of stuff. But I think I've become less and less bothered about what some stranger thinks of me. They don't seem like the kind of person that I'd want to be friends with anyway, if they're that selfish.
I'm really not a fan of confrontation at all either. But I think part of that, obviously, what it stems from is more of a not wanting to inadvertently offend somebody and being wrong myself. Whereas if somebody is being outright just unreasonable or rude, notwithstanding, obviously, there could be a situation where somebody has some, I don't know, some difficulties in some way or whatever, and then, you have to be careful about that. But if, it's just somebody who you're pretty sure is just being outright rude and unsociable, well, guess what? I don't really care what you think anymore because, and then I'm become less worried about that. I'm not going to try and start an argument about it. I don't want to have, if somebody really started screaming their head off or something, I probably would get pretty uncomfortable. But
you just scream louder.
Normally, if you just put, you respond back to that because, as you say, they're just expecting you to go away and just be diffident, which is what a lot of British people would do. But
it's weird, isn't it? And there is that kind of thing that some parents have where they mistakenly think that their child's the most important thing in the universe, and everyone else thinks the same or should think the same. Yeah, well, it is to them, but at the end of the day, every single person here was a child once. Do you know what I mean? So, well, good. I'm glad we've put that to rights. So this episode we are going to be looking at a urban legend from north of the border in the Principality of Scotland. It's a very beautiful place. It's a very complicated place.
You've angered our Scottish listeners there, Chris.
I know.
Principality, it's a fine country in its own right and part of the Union.
Yeah, I know I did, but we don't have any Scottish listeners, so whatever. They know that I'm only joking. I'm Scottish by descent to a certain part. So it's the Gorbles Vampire. Did a 1950s Nosferatu prowl Glasgow's southern necropolis? So the Gorbles, just to give you some background, is an area in Glasgow. It's near the River Clyde. It was kind of tenements, a very poor area, sort of those, the streets where the back of the houses would have a little tiny yard and then an alleyway in the middle and then another tiny yard and then the back of another house and sort of rows of housing like that. It was essentially...
Coronation Street, if you want to see an image of this.
Yeah, but smaller.
That kind of... Yeah, no, absolutely.
But that kind of thing. It was very much like a lot of... This isn't a Glasgow thing, like a lot of inner city UK towns sort of pre-war. It was very much kind of a slum with 20 people to a bedroom, that kind of business, and we had them all over the country. There's plenty in Brighton as well, which were pulled down, but the Gorbles is still there, and by all accounts, it's very nice now, and it's become kind of a cultural centre, a lot of arts and that kind of stuff. That's been a bit gentrified.
Did Glasgow become European city of culture at some point? I vaguely recall that happening.
Yeah.
I've did an episode on that. That's honestly my one of my touch points for Glasgow culture is Rabs Nesbitt, which is awesome.
Probably not ideal.
I don't think it's representative. No, don't get me wrong. He's a philosopher. He's a drunken philosopher.
He is.
But Gregory Fisher, obviously, is quite a posh chap.
He's very posh. But it's a very there's a lot. I'd like to go to Glasgow. I mean, there is an underlying threat of violence there most of the time, and they're quite hard people. But it's also there's lots of very beautiful buildings, and the Southern Acropolis is really lovely. If you ever get a chance to have a look at that on Google or whatever, it's really nice. Like, you don't expect it there. It's like something in Greece or something like that. So, so that's a bit of background on the Gorbles. So,
I think people would be a laugh as well.
Huh?
I think people would be a laugh as well. I've met a few Glaswegians over the years.
Yeah, so have I, and I always get on very well with them. But I think you're running a risk having an English accent in Glasgow, I think, because there is still that.
You don't want to end up on the wrong side of the Celtic Rangers thing as well.
The sectarianism.
Obviously, I'm a Celtic fan, I would be, but...
Same. But yeah, so I think you just have to be a bit wary, because, well, like in any town, like it is for any person who's not from that area, and the people inherently hate you, then you've got to be a bit careful. And I'm sure plenty of people who are not British feel that in British cities all the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Not necessarily
some fairly despicable acts during the recent World Cup.
Not necessarily. We're fortunate.
Euros, I should say. Sorry.
We're fortunate, not hugely in the city we live in, but we do pay an absolute premium to live here. So, right. So, I'm reading this from davidcastillon.net. So, shout out to him. And it's a blog. And so, here we go. On the evening of the 23rd of September 1954, so it's quite recent, Glasgow police received a call summoning them to the Southern Acropolis, a vast cemetery in the Gorbles, one of the city's poorest neighbourhoods. When PC Alex Deeprose arrived a few minutes later, he couldn't believe the sight that confronted him. Hundreds of children were swarming over the graveyard, some clutching crosses and crucifixes, others brandishing axes, staves and knives. The oldest kids are around 14, the youngest could barely even toddle.
It just sounds like a good night out in Dublin or something.
In the Gorbles.
Yeah.
So, PC Deeprose watched in amazement as the children searched among the gravestones, peering behind trees and prowled along elaborate Victorian tombs. The scene was made even more apocalyptic by the steelworks at the end of the cemetery, which was throwing up flames, belching smoke, and sending the scent of sulphur across the necropolis. Blasts of flames cast strange shadows. Dark figures moved in and out of the clouds of rolling fog. "There he is!" the children would shout as they rushed off to confront some silhouette. "No, he's there!" a cry would go up as the fire illuminated another sinister outline. PC Deeprose managed to conquer his astonishment and asked a group of children what they were doing. The kids replied, "They're hunting..."
They're playing Hunt the Taxman.
The Taxman. They were hunting the Gorbles Vampire, a 7-foot-tall monster with long metal fangs. They claimed the vampire had captured and eaten 2 boys and was living in the graveyard. More police arrived, but they couldn't persuade the children to give up their quest. Only when it started to rain... You're not that bothered about it, then.
Not fully committed. It's like, it's flipping it down. Mind you. I mean, I was going to say, the description there, that does sound like something out of a Dickensian novel.
Yeah.
The fog and sulphur and whatnot. I mean, yeah.
Well, there was the Clyde was a huge shipbuilding industry, wasn't there? There was, like Billy Connolly is always talking about his time when he... when he was a dock worker for 4 months and then lived off it for the rest of his comedy career. But yeah, they worked at shipyards and everything there. So it was a big hub for shipbuilding in the UK before that all got shut down for reasons. So it was only when it started to rain and a local headmaster told everyone to stop being ridiculous did the children disperse. The next night, however, the young vampire hunters were back, and the night after that, though in smaller numbers. The children's interest in the monsters waned and the Gorbles Vampire to cause disquiet among adults. So at the moment, it just sounds like a kid's rumour mucking about.
Yeah, it does. So how are we describing the Gorbles Vampire then? So it was like
7 foot tall, metal teeth.
7 foot tall, metal teeth. It sounds like Richard Keel from those Bond movies.
Yeah, Jaws.
Yeah. I think he would have been quite young in 54. I don't know when he was born. I don't know if he actually had metal teeth in real life. Presumably not.
And I'm not sure he was from Glasgow, but don't know. All stuff to look into.
Visit. You don't know. Can't rule it out. It's a theory. It might not have the evidence yet. But...
Yeah, the records of his birth mysteriously disappeared, from what I've heard. And I'm saying birth with air inverted commas.
Exactly. Yeah. So
parents earnestly asked the police if there was any truth in the legend. The story got international press. Questions were asked at Parliament, and a major moral panic saw changes in the law. Vampires outlawed. Eyes to the right. But what was the Gorbles?
It's just like 3 Tories are like, well, I think we should still be allowed to eat children. Technically, that's
it literally just got bounced out of the House of Lords like that.
Yeah, he just did that thing when they were huddled together and just like some obscure bit of parliamentary, like, manoeuvring.
Theatre. But what was the Gorbles Vampire? Who was to blame for the monster's appearance in the southern necropolis, and what were the consequences of the creature's crimes? So what are your thoughts so far? Before we delve deeper.
Well, it sounds to me like, I remember you'll get 1 or 2 kids to start a rumour, and there's nothing much to do. You're very clear. I remember...
Well, it's a fifth, and none of them would have had TVs.
No, exactly.
Radios would have had Cliff Richard on, or Dame Vera Lynn.
Back in the day, for those of us old enough to remember a time before the internet and all that, and everything was sort of always wired on, and when we had 4 channels, and there was nothing to do, and it was... Yeah, I mean, just stuff was boring. So, there was very, very little to entertain you. So you were kids and you go and make your own fun, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
No, I remember, like similar thing to sort of something like that was when there was going to be some big fight after school.
Yeah, we've talked about those before. Popular.
So literally about kind of like 60 of us went down the park to watch this. It was not Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson, I'll be honest with you.
Was it a bit of pushing and shoving, as Roy King would say?
It was pushing and shoving, and a bit of just,
A bit of pushing and shoving.
and then sort of the teacher came out of a bush and gave us all detention or something. They'd actually tracked us down because
the teacher who was coincidentally already in that bush.
But the thing is, it was a PE teacher, as you could imagine.
Oh, here we go.
PE teachers tend to attract that sort of attention. Not in no way, shape, or form do I think it was true, but yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I remember because I was an only child, and TV and stuff was quite boring when you were a kid, but I never really was very bored. Like I'd always like play with my toys or be drawing or like making stuff out of boxes. So I don't know. Like I do kind of. I think kind of we all kind of had to do that. You kind of have to entertain yourself to an extent, or people of a certain vintage. I mean, I'm 38, so it's not exactly vintage, but I kind of. I don't know, like whether kids will lose some of that creativity because they've constantly got entertainment now, or whether their creativity will be bolstered because they have possibly more affordable outlets for it. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see.
It's become more performative, I think, rather than like crafty. So, well, not crafty, you know what I mean? Like making things out of... So, but no, I think, the availability of tools, I think you're sort of seeing quite a lot of, you can publish stuff on TikTok or YouTube or whatever.
Yeah, I know, but that's, I mean, most of that is just people like doing a dance or something. Like none of it's kind of, oh, that's interesting. You've thought of something new. It's people mimicking other people doing stuff. Which
you can have legends like Dapper Laughs. Did you ever hear of that guy?
I did hear of him. He was very much cancelled, wasn't he?
Well, he was for about 5 seconds, and then he was contrite, and then when that didn't pay the bills, he just went straight back into it, and I think he's probably now doing Essex working man's clubs. But, yeah.
Yeah.
Real Dapper Laughs unleashed.
But it's interesting to know where it's... But then it's interesting to know where it's going to go. It'll be culturally interesting to see what is what kind of comes out in music and TV and comedy and stuff over the next 20 years, because I don't have high hopes, unfortunately, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, but I think, there's as well, I suppose there's, to a certain extent, there's probably more pressing things for people to worry about these days, with things like climate change and stuff like that,
Yeah, that's true, but then I don't think that it's one or the other.
No, that's true, yeah.
What I would hope is that people put more effort into doing things that bring joy to the world, like art and music and that kind of stuff, and also are conscious about climate change, rather than wanting to have a big SUV and spending their lives doing a job that they don't necessarily enjoy so that they can get what they think they're expected to have as status symbols. I would hope, because I'd say that I'd say people of, would you say we're the same generation? Probably.
Well, I think slightly. I'm actually tail end of Gen X. I think you're millennial technically.
Yeah.
But I don't particularly believe in. I mean, demographics are there for a reason, obvious. Not demographics. Yeah. Those kind of demographic generalisations.
Yeah, I'd say that people of my generation, or kind of people around my age, so around 40, I guess, I'd say that it's kind of a bit 50-50. Like some people. So rather than it being of the generation above, like about 10% of people gave a shit about climate change and doing anything interesting, I'd say it's probably about 50-50 in my people of our age. And then I think it gets increasingly more as you go down. So people in their 20s are really hot on it. And people who are 15 are like, all of them care, or most of them. Yeah. So, So
I think there has been historically to an extent as well. I remember things like the greenhouse effect, and but obviously there was an easier solution there. So banning CFCs was a viable. Whereas I think the problem is that getting people to give up. I mean, I think sort of getting on really off piste here, but I think one of the things is just amazing how some fairly obvious things have just become politicised. I was having a chat with someone the other day about this, but wearing a face mask has suddenly become like a political statement for some people.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, QAnons.
Oh, good Lord. It's not. Yeah, I'll get onto that.
Yeah, I think we all do our bit as much as we can. Unfortunately, even if all of us do our bit, it's a complete drop in the ocean compared to what corporations and that are doing. They're doing the huge harm. I remember there was a thing that the BBC did about 10 years ago, which was they wanted to do an experiment about weather prediction about climate change. And you could download something and put it on your PC. And when you weren't using your PC, you just leave it on and this would run in the background and make calculations. And then they would consolidate all that data and see what the kind of prediction is, because they'd have so many data sets. And people were going, I remember someone going, isn't this going to be really bad for the environment in itself? And they said, to be honest, if everyone in this country left their PC on for the next 3 weeks, it would still use less energy than a supercomputer uses in 1 minute. So no, it's fine. So I mean, that's the thing. I think that's one thing which is quite difficult to get on board, not get on board, but get your head around with climate change, is the fact that even if you do everything right, it's such a tiny, even if everyone does everything right, really, it's a tiny fraction of the pollution that's caused.
I think it's, people putting pressure to bear on companies that they expect to see more,
Yeah, but unfortunately, the politicians don't listen to companies. Don't listen to people, do they?
Funnily enough, I think companies do start to take the lead a bit on this, because you're seeing a bit of that now. Whereas, I mean, they call it greenwashing, some of it, obviously, but how much they're actually truly doing. But I don't know. There's. I think basically once they see that there's a profit to be made by by going, once they see consumers wanting to see that, unfortunately, because we live within a capitalist system, you've got to change it with the tools within.
Yeah, they follow the market.
Then suddenly, there's a viable market. Then they want, so, and that's when things become scalable and more achievable as well. It's kind of like, well, actually, if everyone's buying electric cars, then, I mean, I don't actually own a car, so
no, me neither, because I'm basically a saint.
It's not just because I don't need to use one where I live.
Yeah, same.
But you know, if I was out in the country or something, it'd be a different story. But yeah, it's. But yeah, so you know, but yeah, the problem is, I think things definitely will change as those kind of things go across. The real issue is it going to, you know,
slow
when it changes and whether it's going to be far too late, which is the terrifying thing. But yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
I think just my general point was that, you know, I'm always quite wary of just kind of like, there always seems to be this thing where it's like, oh, the latest generation are all useless and blah blah blah. I remember one of the few things I got out of RE lessons at school was someone reading some quote, and I think it was basically from a you know, like from ancient Rome, effectively. But it's basically like, oh, this generation the worst ever, blah blah blah. They're all, you know, these complaints are literally like go back.
Yeah, people complain about younger people. Right. Yeah. A story as old as time.
Getting older and our bones hurt, and so yeah.
Well, and you forget how shit you were when you were that age, and absolutely. Also if they're doing anything which, to be honest, puts you to shame, i.e., what young people are doing about climate change, compared to people who, you know, from baby boomers and that kind of stuff. Considering how
generation could have done more as well, Chris. To be honest with you,
yeah. Considering how socially conscious they are and all that kind of stuff, basically it puts them to shame. So they. React like anyone does when they're being criticised by lashing out.
I'm reflecting on what you do better. Yeah, absolutely.
So, the Gorbles Vampire certainly seemed to reel the children. Certainly,
talking about climate change.
And I jumped into the wrong point there. Anyway, so parents earnestly, we've done that. Parliament changing the law.
What's this changing law then? I think it's something to do with. Didn't they blame it on American comic books or something like this?
Probably. That's kind of the GTA of its time, wasn't it? So
I don't know when it came out, but the whole thing sounds to me like a kind of like mediocre episode of Doctor Who.
Yes, another mediocre.
Foggy, you know, I can just imagine this all on some soundstage at Shepperton.
Yeah, dry ice.
Yeah. Ice, 6 kids representing, you know, and they're just a load of sounds off stage. There are hundreds of children. I can only see 5, but fair enough. Use your imagination.
So, Neil, how real...
Covered in bubble wrap.
How real was the Gorbles Vampire? The Gorbles Vampire...
I mean, it sounds on the up and up.
Yeah, it's 100% real.
100 Glaswegian...
They've got an interview with him a bit further down.
Yeah.
The Gorbles Vampire...
You know, it's either a load of bored kids just going off to do something, or that can't be right.
No, that doesn't sound right. Playing a game that gets a bit out of hand. So he certainly seemed real enough to the children who hunted him.
But there was just that one kid at the front who was just. Actually, I don't want to admit I just made this all up.
Yeah, well, he's quite bullshit.
He's like, you know, he's just going to like, you know, make a few of his mates go out there and then just like, you know, take the piss out of him, and then there's like just 100 kids come out just really tooled up. He's like, fucking hell, I can't. This has gone too far now. No, definitely, there was this vampire, yeah, and it's like he's been eating kids and shit.
It's one of those things, isn't it?
All of that in a Glaswegian accent. I'm not going to.
It's one of those things where someone might have thought they saw something and then said it to someone in school, and then Chinese whispers. Then suddenly you've got a vampire situation on your hands, and it could have seen someone saw a shadow or someone who looked like some tall bloke who looked a bit withered or whatever. I don't know.
Hanging around the graveyard.
Yeah. It could have just been one of the UK's. Could have been one of the UK's first goths.
Yeah. One of the guys who founded Bauhaus or something.
So, on the first day of the panic, rumours of the monster spread from school to school. Ronnie Sanderson, who was 8 when he took part in the vampire hunt, said, "It all started in the playground. The word was that there was a vampire and everyone was going to head there after school. At 3:00, the school emptied because everyone made a beeline for it. We sat there for ages on a wall, waiting and waiting. I couldn't go in because it was a bit scary for me." Doesn't sound like a Glaswegian to me.
No Buffy the Vampire Slayer use there.
I think someone saw it wandering about and the cry went up. "There's the vampire!" Another of the young vampire hunters, Tam Smith, that's a good Scottish name,
Right.
said the red light. Yeah, sure, Fatema Shanta.
I hope so.
Weetam. And the red light and the smoke from the steelworks would flare up and make all the gravestones leap. You could see figures walking about at the back, all lined in red light. The sighting of a bonfire near the cemetery even led to screams that the vampire was burning the remains of his victims. Another boy there at the time, Kenny Hughes, said the children's terror built up until it basically became a mass hysteria. You can imagine, like, edging each other on and stuff, can't you?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Especially, I mean, because imagine this graveyard does look quite gothic and spooky.
It is really good. Have a look at it while I'm getting through this. You know,
still in a sort of fairly post-industrial or industrial landscape.
Like smoke and chimney. It would have been like kind of Victorian style. Despite the determination of the youngsters to hunt down their monster, there are no records of any missing or murdered children around the time of the Gorbles Vampire incident. So if no vampire was skulking around Glasgow Victorian cemeteries, we might ask where the strange myth came from. Was the Gorbles Vampire a modern industrial version of older legends? Were scary passages in the Bible to blame, or was the culprit to be found in imported American popular culture? Were the fears of bloodsuckers just childish fantasies, or was the vampire conjured from the dirt and the fumes of the poverty of the Gorbles itself?
I'll go with the latter. It sounds more interesting.
So, forerunners of the Gorbles Vampire, monsters with iron teeth. So it seems they've been kicking around for a while. The Monkey Man of Delhi had iron teeth potentially, didn't he?
And claws, I thought.
And claws, and Frosty Jack. Spring Heel Jack, he potentially had. There's a lot of iron teeth stuff going on, isn't there? Which is weird.
Yeah,
because I mean we've had iron since the Iron Age, so it wasn't like new technology.
No, but I guess people probably associated it more with that kind of
steampunk revival that was going on.
Oh yeah, do you reckon it was just those sort of proto hipsters?
Yeah, steampunk hipsters. Yeah, they had like a monocle which looked like it had a chimney on it. And
I was thinking it would probably be like a little telescope or something.
Yeah, a little telescope, chimney on it. I don't know, like a brass compass on the side. Yeah, little furnace.
For some reason, it's gas powered, steam powered.
Steam powered.
It doesn't really need any propulsion engine.
No, got a little a tiny little boiler in your top pocket that you put little logs into. So it could be that.
Goggles as well, presumably. I've never
goggles on top of your head.
Steampunk people without goggles on the head.
Got to have your goggles. Possibly a stovepipe hat, really long top hat.
I would hope so.
Yeah, some kind of
stove in it.
With a stove in it. With two horses.
Head warm.
Two horses out front.
Everyone knows you lose all the heat from the top of your head. That's talking of urban myths.
Yeah, it's true.
So yeah, stove on top of
some kind of contraption on your hand with springs on it for climbing, maybe. Don't know.
It makes your grip better.
I'll be honest with you. I do quite like the steampunk aesthetic. I think it's quite nice to look at. I'm not going to dress that way.
It can be quite, it can be quite interesting. It can be quite well done if somebody's put thought into it, or it can just be like mashing a load of old nonsense together.
Yeah, which is obviously what I would do. So, myths of iron-toothed monsters have haunted Glasgow for some time. According to Tam Smith from earlier, parents sometimes warned their badly behaved offspring that the Iron Man, a local ogre, would get them. And so I should just add that this isn't...
It's just a billionaire in a seat.
It's not Robbie Downey Jr., despite the fact that I believe that some people would say in the late 80s he was a local ogre. Another
change of behaviour.
Ogreish behaviour.
Rarely for the better.
Another Glasgow...
Huh? Doing well, good for him.
He is doing well, yeah. He's quite an intense man. But I imagine that being in the Hollywood system since being a child and both your parents being directors and stuff, you're probably...
Yeah, I think...
Yeah, you're probably going to have a slightly different outlook on life than perhaps people with less gilded upbringings. Don't know.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a bit of a bubble, doesn't it? The whole Hollywood thing.
I can imagine. Yeah, he seems like a nice enough guy for all of that.
Yeah, he owns a lot of animals. I know that, so that's nice. I think I saw
it was a passion project, was it? We can explain that.
It was. He was trying to
tell you what we need in the year of our Lord, fucking 2019 or whatever it was.
He was very much
a new Dr. Dolittle.
He was
brilliant.
He was very much like Will Smith, trying to launch the careers of all, like Will Smith's done with all his children, like launched them careers in me singing or acting,
music and film. I mean, his son is a very charismatic actor.
I don't know that I've seen him in anything.
Really did not inherit his father's charisma genes.
Oh, really?
Jaden Smith. Oh, good Lord, he's so wooden. Bless him. Yeah, he's not a good actor. Because you remember Will Smith in the 90s.
Yeah, he's really
in the movie. He was just
charisma. Yeah, he's very likable. Yeah,
kind of almost like the sort of Eddie Murphy of the 90s. Not to compare too much, but that kind of like just insane chemistry. But I
can't remember if he's a Scientologist or not. I think he may be, which is
I think he dabbled because a lot of people are, but never really got into it. I mean, most of what I've heard about Will Smith actually just seems like an incredibly
nice. Him as a nice guy.
Yeah. But no, I mean, the whole pushing the kids thing, but I guess fair enough.
Maybe that's what Downey Jr. was doing with the Dr. Dolittle thing, because he owns loads of animals on his big ranch. Maybe he got them all in the film, and he was hoping that they'd progress. Don't know.
Get his cat like a bit of work in Sabrina the Teenage Witch or something. The payday and that. Didn't you get the whole menagerie earning residuals?
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful.
Lovely stuff.
Suddenly he's like canny businessman.
Yeah.
What's the title of the article? Always work with children or animals.
And the thing is as well, animals are famously very bad at entertainment contract law. So, you just literally feed them peanuts if they're elephants or hay, and they're not going to know the difference, are they? Someone like Britney Spears' dad just, had kids just to make a load of money out of them, and then all of a sudden you're getting all this grief about your conservatorship, quite rightly, obviously. But it's, animals. Nobody's going to, it's not like anyone's going to be frantic about animal rights, is it? No, especially not in Hollywood, where they famously electrocuted to death the monkey in Any Which Way But Loose.
Really?
Which is, because like the monkey would do hand signals, go do left, Clyde, and he takes.
I've never seen those movies, but obviously I've heard. Yeah. I've seen clips.
How they got him to do those hand movements was by electrocuting him via his testicles, and the monkey died, and they had to get in another monkey just like for the last bits of the film. And then they put in more laws in place surrounding animals.
Well, we now have no animals were harmed during the making of this film at the end of movies, just to assure you that we didn't. Good Lord.
Kind of, it makes Clint Eastwood go down in my estimations, the fact that he was complicit.
You know what? He's been doing quite a bit of that over the last few decades. Because I get that he's a Republican and he's right wing, and that's fine. I don't have a beef with. Some of them nowadays I do have a beef with it, but kind of like.
I didn't know his politics.
No, but he'd always been kind of like a bit shy about it. But you figure he's hardly going to be like a huggy kissy kind of like lefty, because about self-reliance and stuff like that, which is all absolutely fine in my view. But you thought he'd be more of one of those kind of moderate kind of like people. But
no.
I mean, I think when he came out with the whole having a go at a chair. And you just look like a single. Did you not see this?
No.
So a Republican National Convention. This is where he basically kind of formally came out as a Republican.
Right.
I think.
Him and Hulk Hogan.
He went to the RNC, sort of came out and said, a lot of people tell you Hollywood, it's all, everyone's left wing, everyone's Democrat. I'm here to tell you it's not true. And then his big. There's
me, Hulk Hogan, John Wayne, God rest his soul, Stallone, Arnie.
Yeah.
Guy you played
Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's one of those ones where I imagine he's kind of not. He wouldn't be like insane. Anyway.
Arnie. But no, he's Austrian. They've got pretty right wing country.
one at a time, because you see his speech about Kristallnacht after they invaded the Congress. That he managed to work Conan the Barbarian into it, but he was basically telling him, so he doesn't approve of that kind of behaviour.
Well, I would encourage anyone who's listening to this who wants to see how hilarious it is that Arnie's sort of a national treasure in America, and who also is into Me Too, to watch a travel documentary he did in the mid-'80s called Arnie in Brazil. And that is some awkward watching. Some very
gentlemen.
Very squirmy. Very handsy. Yeah, it's interesting. Considering he was the congressman for the richest state in America. California.
But anyway, so Clint Eastwood, he bought out this empty chair and then just basically started telling it off because the chair was a Barack Obama, apparently, and how he'd let the country down. I can't remember what his accusations were, but he went down an absolute storm at the RNC.
So he was acting at an imaginary person, an invisible Democrat.
But it just looked like a senile old man arguing with a chair. They don't
Stop
really
moving. Oh, dear.
Hello, this is Java Edge again. I hope you've enjoyed the first part of the Gorbles Vampire. We certainly didn't get too deep into the topic. But not to worry, both parts are released at the same time. I will speak to you again at the start of part 2. Adieu.